Alex wasn't sure why he first joined the forum. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was loneliness. Either way, 3 years ago, he created an account under the name Stargazer and stumbled upon a post that caught his attention. Do you ever feel like the world is just too much? It was a simple question, but something about it felt raw, real. He replied without thinking. All the time. That was the first time he spoke to Moonlight. At first, the conversations were casual, talking about movies, books, music. But as weeks turned into months, their bond grew deeper. They talked about everything: childhood dreams, insecurities, bad days at work, heartbreaks. He broke up with me today. Moonlight once messaged late at night. Alex hesitated before responding. Then he's an idiot. Maybe. But it still hurts. Yeah, I know. He did know, because just a few months earlier, he had been the one sending that same message. They supported each other through everything. When Alex's boss unfairly blamed him for a failed project, Moonlight was the one who calmed him down. When Moonlight's best friend moved to another country, Alex stayed up until 3 a.m. just to keep her company. They knew each other's fears and weaknesses, their guilty pleasures and secret wishes. You hate olives, and you can't stand horror movies. You always listen to sad songs when you're stressed, and you eat chocolate when you're happy. They were each other's safe place. But they had rules. No real names, no locations, no personal details, no meeting in real life. What if we ever run into each other without knowing? Alex had once joked. Then fate must have a sense of humor, Moonlight replied. And so, for 3 years, they remained anonymous friends, knowing everything about each other, except the one thing that mattered most: their real identities. Monday morning was like any other, emails piling up, the coffee machine working overtime, and the low murmur of office chatter filling the air. But today, something was different. The moment Alex stepped into the conference room for the morning meeting, he felt it. A shift in energy, a presence. At the front of the room stood a woman. She was confident but not arrogant, standing with perfect posture and a composed expression. She wore a fitted navy blue dress that reached just below her knees, elegant yet professional. A thin silver belt accentuated her waist, and her dark brown hair cascaded down her shoulders in soft waves. She had striking hazel eyes that seemed to observe everything with quiet intelligence. And when she smiled, it wasn't just polite, it was warm, inviting. The room naturally quieted as she took a step forward. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice smooth and steady. "My name is Evelyn Carter. Today is my first day here, and I'm excited to be joining the team as a marketing strategist." There was something effortless about the way she spoke. Clear, concise, yet engaging. She made eye contact with several people in the room, including Alex, as if she was already acknowledging them as future teammates. "I know it can take time to settle into a new environment, so I hope to learn from all of you. That said, I'm also eager to contribute in any way I can. Please don't hesitate to let me know how I can help. And if I ever step on anyone's toes, just let me know, and I'll do my best to adjust." A few people chuckled, and Alex noticed how easily she commanded attention, not with force, but with presence. She wasn't just introducing herself, she was setting the tone for how she worked. Confident, capable, but also approachable. Their manager, Mr. Reynolds, clapped his hands together. "Thank you, Evelyn. We're lucky to have you on board. Everyone, make sure to help us settle in." As people started murmuring their welcomes, Evelyn glanced in Alex's direction. For a split second, he had the strangest feeling, like he had seen that look before. That slight tilt of her head when she was curious. The way she pressed her lips together when she was thinking. But before he could process it, she turned away, and the moment passed. Alex shook off the thought. It was just his imagination. Or was it? Alex wasn't the type to believe in coincidences. But as the day went on, he couldn't shake off the feeling that something about Evelyn felt familiar. It started with the little things. During lunch, a few colleagues invited Evelyn to join them at their usual table. She accepted with a friendly nod, setting her tray down next to Alex. As the conversation flowed, someone brought up a recent marketing trend, and Evelyn chimed in effortlessly, her insights sharp yet easy to understand. "I read an article about this last week," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "It's kind of like the time when companies overused influencer marketing without considering authenticity. Remember the coffee brand fiasco from last year? Classic case of forced branding." Alex froze mid-bite. That exact example, that exact phrasing. He had debated this same topic in one of his late-night conversations with his anonymous online friend. The words weren't identical, but the way she structured her argument, the references, it was too close, too familiar. He glanced at her, studying her expression. She was speaking naturally, as if she had no idea she was triggering something in his memory. Maybe it was just a coincidence. But then it happened again. Later that afternoon, Alex overheard Evelyn talking to another colleague about movies. "I'll watch anything as long as it has a good storyline," she said, crossing her arms. "But if the main character is an idiot who ignores all the obvious red flags, I'm out. Life's too short for bad decisions." Alex nearly dropped his pen. That was almost word for word what his anonymous friend had once typed when they were discussing why they both hated predictable horror movies. His pulse quickened. This wasn't just a feeling anymore. This was real. Still, he needed to be sure. The next day, he decided to test her. They were in the break room, waiting for their coffee, when he casually said, "I swear, this machine takes longer every day. It's like waiting for the universe to decide your fate." Evelyn let out a small laugh. "At least it doesn't give you existential dread like the sound of a ticking clock in a silent room." Alex's breath caught. That was his phrase. He had written that exact thing in a late-night rant about how waiting in silence made his mind spiral into overthinking. He turned to look at her, his heart pounding. One last test. "Black coffee, no sugar?" he asked, nodding toward her cup. She blinked, surprised. "How did you know?" His mind raced. There was only one person who always joked about how milk and sugar ruined the purity of coffee, and that person had never been in front of him before today. Evelyn tilted her head. a flicker of curiosity crossing her face. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Alex swallowed. "Because I think I know you." But he didn't say it. Not yet. Instead, he simply smiled. Lucky guess. For now. That night, Alex couldn't focus on anything else. He lay on his bed, phone in hand, staring at the familiar chat window. For 3 years, this anonymous friendship had been his safe space. No expectations, no pressure, just two people sharing thoughts, jokes and struggles with the world. But now, for the first time, doubt crept in. Alex hesitated before typing. "Stargazer. Weird question. Have you ever met someone who reminded you of, well, yourself?" A moment later, a reply came. "Moonlight. Ha! Are we talking about doppelgangers now? I hope mine is cooler than me." "Why?" Alex exhaled, fingers tapping on the screen. "Stargazer. Just thinking. Like, what if you unknowingly knew someone in real life but only realized it later?" A pause. Then, "Moonlight. I guess it depends. If they knew everything about me but didn't say anything, it would be kinda creepy. But if it happened naturally, maybe it'd feel surreal?" Alex's heart pounded. That was exactly how he felt right now. Stargazer. And what if you suspected someone, but you weren't sure? Moonlight. Then you'd have to drop hints and see if they recognize them. Obviously, classic detective move. Alex smiled despite himself. That was what he had already started doing with Evelyn. But he still needed proof. Stargazer. All right. Let's say someone figured it out, but was too scared to ask. What would you tell them? A longer pause this time. Moonlight. I'd say, "What's stopping you?" Alex stared at the screen, feeling an odd mix of excitement and nervousness. Maybe it was time to take the final step. The next morning, Alex arrived at the office earlier than usual. He found Evelyn at the coffee machine, stirring her black coffee, no sugar. Just like always. "Morning," he greeted casually. She looked up, giving him a small smile. "Morning, Alex." He leaned against the counter, choosing his words carefully. "Had an interesting conversation last night." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Oh." He nodded, watching her closely. "Yeah, about how weird it would be if two people talked for years without knowing they already knew each other." Evelyn's stirring slowed. "That is an interesting thought," she said, her tone unreadable. Alex's heart raced. Time for the next step. "You ever have that feeling?" he asked, testing her. Evelyn took a sip of her coffee, her expression neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. "I think, if it were me, I'd start dropping hints, see if the other person picks up on them." Alex's grip tightened around his cup. That was almost exactly what Moonlight had said last night. He took a slow breath. "Like a detective move?" Evelyn finally looked up, her brown eyes locking onto his, and she smiled. It wasn't just any smile. It was one he had imagined countless times behind a screen, the kind that felt like a shared inside joke. "Exactly," she said softly. Alex's chest tightened. This was it. No more doubt. No more guessing. He knew. And from the way Evelyn was looking at him, she knew too. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of 3 years' worth of conversations, secrets, and shared emotions hung between them. Alex wasn't sure whether to laugh at the absurdity of it all, or marvel at the strange twist of fate that had brought them here. Evelyn was the first to break the silence. She crossed her arms, tilting her head slightly. So, I guess this is the part where we officially meet? Alex chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, I think we skipped that step 3 years ago. He extended his hand. I'm Alex Carter, marketing team, coffee addict, and apparently terrible at recognizing people I already know. Evelyn smirked, but shook his hand. Her grip was firm, confident. Evelyn Bennett, new hire, digital strategist. I'm very amused at how long it took you to figure this out. He laughed, shaking his head. To be fair, I didn't think my anonymous internet best friend would waltz into my office one day. She shrugged, sipping her coffee. Neither did I. There was a pause, a shift in the air between them. Something unspoken lingered. They had spent years telling each other everything, yet now, standing face to face, everything felt new. Alex hesitated for only a second before deciding to take the next step. You know, I think a revelation like this calls for a proper celebration. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. Oh? And what does a proper celebration entail? Dinner, Alex said simply. Somewhere outside of chat windows and office walls. Just you and me. No usernames, no screens. Just real life. Evelyn looked at him. And for the first time since their discovery, she seemed just a little caught off guard. But then, a small smile played at the corners of her lips. I'd like that, she said softly. Alex felt something shift inside him. Something new, unfamiliar, but exciting. This was different from their late-night talks, different from the comfort of anonymity. This was real. As they walked back to their desks, Alex stole a glance at her. For 3 years, they had been each other's safe space in a world that often felt too chaotic. But now, for the first time, he wondered, maybe this was just the beginning.